Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacey Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values. Hey, Flyover family, we're backstage at the ReAwaken America event with Lara Logan. Woo! So excited. This is a little bit different than the last time we were in person with you, when it was like -7 degrees in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
That's right. Tiny, tiny little place.
It was so cold when you walked outside, you could literally feel your nose hairs freezing.
Yeah.
It was so cold.
David, are you whining?
It was tough. And
He's whining, isn't he?
He's doing a little bit of whining, you're right.
Come on.
and we're in Vegas. It's nice and warm and
Yeah,
toasty.
now it's hot.
Yeah, I know. It feels like somebody set fire to you when you step outside.
I know. It is really hot.
It's a great place to build a tent and
Yeah.
have a meeting. You know, but thus is the way with conservatives nowadays.
Well,
Is got to
actually-
find a place to show up.
No, it's not a good place for it. They've done nothing but try to shut Clay Clark
know.
down since he
Yes.
tried to bring this here.
Are you surprised about that?
I am a little shocked that they're willing to go to such lengths because, I mean, at this point it seems to me like millions of people have woken up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're past the we need to wake people up phase, and I thought that the strategy was you're a bunch of lunatics and conspiracy theorists and we just pretty much ignore you.
Yeah.
But actually what this demonstrates, the lengths that they've gone to shut this event down and make it difficult and to censor Clay Clark and the people speaking here is evidence to me that they're afraid.
Yeah. Totally agree. And doing still as we've been going, now they've made it so you can't go past 8 o'clock tonight. It's supposed to go to 10:30.
Oh no, and they keep coming up with more things.
Yep.
Got to have
Yep.
more security, more police officers, got to pay for this, pay for that.
Yep.
They're doing everything they can, and that is a sign of real desperation.
It does. It doesn't come from a place of strength. Something that is encouraging to me over the last few days is to see the series of events of 6 months ago, Fox let Tucker Carlson go, or however that went down.
Yeah.
You have a history with them, and I kind of like your insight on this. But he seems to have done better in a way. And on the same night, I mean, it couldn't have been just an accident. He hosted President Donald Trump, and they had a conversation that has 300 million views in like a day and a half.
Yeah.
Fox News got about 20 million, maybe 23 million, I think, during the debates.
Maybe.
Something in that range.
Maybe, depending on where
Who
they
you
get
talking
those
to.
figures
Yeah,
from, right?
exactly.
And so for me, we watched it again this morning, the interview with President Trump.
Yeah, I watched it.
And Tucker, while we're getting ready, and I just paused and I said, 300 million people watched this. Like, for me, that is very encouraging to see how insignificant the stranglehold that was there in 2020, 16, 12, and 8, all these, it seems to they just don't matter as much now because there's other ways for people to get it, and people are hungry for it.
So I got to be honest with you guys. I'm pretty pissed off at the moment, right? I'm angry at the moment because I see people standing up day after day. This is the year of the whistleblower. You've had whistleblowers coming out everywhere, and no one is supporting them. So you're right. It's encouraging, and it's really significant that nobody has a stranglehold on information. But what I see with technology is that that's only by the grace of Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And I don't like the fact that we live in the grip of whoever controls the technology.
True.
So that bothers me. I agree with you 100%. It is encouraging to see
the
that there
people's
are ways.
appetite is there.
Yeah, but see, I don't doubt that people's appetite is there. I know that. So that for me is not, I don't take encouragement from that because I know
You
that
already
to
knew
be
that.
an absolute fact. Because I know that most people do not believe in postpartum abortion. I know that most people
Right.
do not believe that you should have an abortion at 8 months and it should be up to the mother.
Right.
Okay, that is pure evil. I know that most people do not want their 10-year-old child taught at school about how to pleasure an older man.
Right.
So these things are so far from what is decent and what is reality.
Right.
That I appreciate the fact that it sends a signal to the world that that's where people stand. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. It is important that people are reminded of that, or that people who don't know it see that. Because what we saw during the 2020 election, something that really frustrated me, was that if you went to a Trump rally or you looked at your show, whatever, you understood the power and the breadth, the scale of the support for Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the main reasons that people did not buy the results of the 2020 election was that they saw it.
Right.
You couldn't change that. There's nothing like the power of and the force of that swell of support for Donald Trump. Right? And when you looked at these ridiculous, stupid events, staged events for Joe Biden with the stupid circles around the chair,
with a few
and all
people,
that nonsense.
Feel like if it's security or somebody around it.
You didn't even have to look at the results and you knew it was a lie. That's how people felt, right? And then you added that he won, 17 or 18 of the bellwether states.
He crushed Barack Obama's numbers.
20-something of the 32 bellwether counties. And I mean, you can literally go on and on. He got more, votes from his own base. He got more votes from the Republican Party as a whole. He got more votes from independents. Come on, right? No one was going to buy it, right? They just weren't going to buy it. And what have they done? I mean, people have been tarred, feathered, burned at the stake. Now they're about to put them in prison. And still people are speaking up for the truth. And it's not a few thousand people. It's millions of people. Okay, people all over the world know that it was a con. So that's why I'm pissed right now, because where are the leaders standing up doing something about it? Where are the people standing up supporting the whistleblowers? Why is Tarek Johnson, 23 years at the Capitol Police, this man was trusted to evacuate the chamber, right? The most important elected leaders in this country were evacuated under his responsibility. And what has he been doing since he spoke up? He's been moving furniture for a fraction of his salary when he was at the Capitol Police, which wasn't exactly millions of dollars in the first place, right?
Wow.
So why?
You're seeing it with FBI agents, same thing. FBI agents blowing the whistle, they're out of there.
And it didn't come up on the debate stage with the Republican Party. Neither did election integrity.
Nothing.
Not one time.
Like, how could you even watch that debate?
It didn't even come up.
How could you even watch it? I know you got to watch it for work.
We had to.
I know. I'd rather stick needles in my
It felt like
crazy.
that. It felt like the JV team or something. It felt like, it almost felt like a talent level of people they pulled from the audience.
You know what it felt like? The whole thing feels like for me? Theater.
Yes.
That's why I didn't watch. Because it's an act. It is literally just an act. When I watch it go, sort of supposedly go viral over, Prigozhin, right? And Wagner Group, and whether he's dead or not. Nobody even knows if he was on the plane. I've never seen such BS in my life. It's like, he was manifested. Oh, but wait, wasn't one plane, there were two. And we think he's dead, or he is dead. I mean, and literally, if you watch the networks, you would believe without a doubt that his death was confirmed. He may be dead. He may have died on that plane. I don't have any special insight, but we don't know. And I'm so tired of being a pawn in somebody else's game. I'm done. I've had it up to here.
Laura, we got to cut it because we're about to introduce you, but I got about 100 more questions for you. We need to bring you on for a live full interview and go deep on these things because people need to hear this stuff.
Yeah, we just love you. We thank you.
Our founding fathers evolved the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Wow, as promised, we're going to continue this conversation, and we had such a great time in Las Vegas. We always do when we're with Lara Logan.
She is a blast.
You don't know what's coming next.
No.
She's going to make you laugh, probably throw you for a curveball, here or there. But one of the truth tellers, of our time, in an era that media has gotten watered down with sports media, regular journalists, has gotten watered down with podcasts and speculation, and there's more people doing less real journalism than ever before. She's one of the true voices out there. And so we're going to continue that conversation as promised. And we're going to dive into this new docuseries that just dropped today with the one and only Lara Logan. I guess I wanted to say watered down with clowns like us that, can just buy a mic and start talking. But that really is the point. It's a little bit like music where, you used to have to go to a recording studio to record something and do all this. And now any kid with a laptop has a better, mechanism than the Beatles or Elvis ever had, at any point. And that's good in some ways and bad in some ways because it gets more people into the game. But it also sort of waters down things to
some of the art
to the point, and you lose some of the professionalism of the actual work, the journalism that you do.
Yes, I mean it's a great thing that Tucker Carlson can be taken off air at Fox and can move on to Twitter and have millions and millions and millions of followers, right? And fortunately, he's a pro and he has the infrastructure and everything in place, and he can still make it look professional. And it is a great thing that people like yourselves, right, can become journalists and grow an audience, because I think you've done something really important for this country and for so many people. But it's when people think that is a substitute for everything else.
Right.
And that's kind of why I'm fighting for scripted investigative content, like in this show. It's much more expensive. It's easier for people. Look at Glenn Beck. He's got a studio. He's an amazing guy. He makes fortunes of money doing what he does, and he's really, really good at it. But he'd be the first person to say, I don't do that.
Right.
And I think that's really important. And I love that you do that, right? And so that's kind of where we are. I'm fighting to keep doing this. Fortunately, I have a strong partner in that, in Ben Swan from Truth and Media, because he's really made it all happen financially. I've got my hands full editorially, and I'm just so grateful that as a real journalist, Ben is a real journalist, and he respects that, and he knows what it's worth. And so he's kept this all afloat. But really, the credit there belongs to him, because I've had no part in that. And I'm just so grateful that he's one of the few people that is willing to go out on a limb and make it happen.
It's really important. Tonight, actually, the first of the docuseries came out, the rest of the story. We're going to play the trailer for it, but can you kind of set it up? Tell us a little bit about this and how it got started.
I got a call from Jake Lang, who is a January 6th prisoner who's behind bars. He's been there a long time, years now, without trial. And Jake said, hey, have you heard of the story of Roseanne Boylan? And it was crazy because I had only a short time before that watched a documentary that Jake's company made. And that's where I learned for the first time about Roseanne Boylan, because he was right there on the steps. He pulled a guy next to her to safety and helped to try to save Roseanne. And when I watched that in the documentary, I was shocked that I did not know the story of Roseanne Boylan. And I thought to myself, this is what I do, right? I really want, if I don't know this name, then there's other people out there.
Yeah.
And everybody should know her name and what happened to her. And I thought I would give anything to tell her story. And then Jake called me from prison and said, would you tell this story? And I was like, wow, okay, so God really wants me to do this. And then I mentioned it to Ben, because we'd been talking about doing work together. And he said, yes, I want to do it, but let's do more. And so that's how this became the 20-minute weekly series. And it was really inspired by Roseanne Boylan. And I felt guilty that I didn't know. And I felt guilty that I, as a journalist, have not done enough to bring the truth about January 6th into the public, consciousness, because there's only a very negative, very distorted narrative that's out there. And one of the things that bothered me was how nobody tells you the stories of the people. We really don't know who people from all over America found their way to Washington, D.C. that day. Do you know what's incredible? How many of them had never, ever seen the Capitol before?
Wow.
You know that?
No.
People had never seen the Capitol in their own country. There are people growing up all over this country who have never been to Washington, D.C. They've never seen the White House. And they wanted to be there. And they didn't go there to overthrow the government. They didn't go there to cause violence. They went there to exercise their First Amendment rights and stand up as Americans and stand up for the principle of free and fair elections, because they believed that there were issues. Some believed the election was stolen. Others believed that there was enough out there that it needed to be examined. And I loved traveling to these different places and coming to know these people. And then I realized, wow, there really is a black hole over January 6th. Nobody knows and understands who these people were and why they made that journey. So that's part of what we've done.
They have in so many cases been turned into just a caricature of real people, and it almost presented as if their whole life is summed up in them standing there in a coat and a MAGA hat on this one day like that. No more than like if you grab some Buffalo Bills fan that's there, on a cold day cheering, like he might be an accountant on Monday. Like nobody's life is summed up by a screenshot of them in one moment. And they've painted a million people with a brush stroke of one. And I think what you've done is taken that broad brush stroke and you've plucked those people out one at a time and presented them like, no, here's a real person with a name and a very complex history, just like you watching. And I think that's so important. We all deserve the dignity of the complexness that makes us up, our views. And I love the way that you've told this story. I'd love to play the trailer that will come out of that and have you kind of give us a little more breakdown of where this series is going.
You've learned a lot more about January 6th. You talked to hundreds of defendants. What have you learned?
Well, first I've learned about pain.
I believe in my nephew. I am proud of him. He was just larger than life.
We wanted to come and kind of just share what really happened today.
He had never been in trouble before in his life, so this was just so overwhelming. I was sitting in my home, and I got a call from his uncle.
What did he say?
They robbed him of his hope, his will to live. They took his fight away from him.
They broke him.
They completely broke him, and they broke his heart.
It's hard to find the truth these days, and it's needed now more than ever. We've traveled the country to bring you honest, accurate reporting.
Bottom line, Laura, if they didn't want people going to the Capitol, they didn't want people even getting close to the Capitol, it never would have happened. It happened because they wanted to happen.
No one was stopping you.
This is the government we're talking about, okay? Like they have like nukes and F-15s. They can do whatever they want to stop average people like me.
34-year-old Roseanne Boylan was one of 4 people killed.
This was a woman who got pushed down, smothered, trampled, and then beaten.
Had this been covered at all by anyone else in the media?
No.
They named me as one of the insurrectionists that was preventing the cops from rescuing her.
Was that true?
Absolutely not. This crutch was right at my feet, and I put it above my head, and I said, in the name of Jesus, Lord, please stop this.
Jeremy was at the Capitol providing security.
I mean, he's quite literally the poster boy for the Special Forces.
When you were arrested, they never sat you down and said, is this yours?
No, because they're the same officers that recruited me on December 9th of 2020.
From Department of Homeland Security.
The same 2 guys.
These people are hiding all of this information, and judges have let them get away with that.
You could be here forever.
I will be here as long as the American people leave me here.
I'm Lara Logan with the rest of the story. Join us.
Wow, that premieres tonight. Wow, that is powerful. How does that make you feel to watch that?
I love to watch it because I remember every one of those moments. And I'm just constantly reminded of so many things. I see Philip Anderson there. He's the black guy sitting and saying that if they wanted this to happen. Well, right, Philip Anderson put out on his Twitter account that he was part of this series, and the very next day he was arrested.
Wow.
He just posted about that. And so here you have a guy who's been through unbelievable trauma, who for a long time after January 6th, because he nearly died on those steps, he was extremely traumatized, and yet he's still standing up, And what you discover when you look into Philip Anderson is, wait a minute, here's one thing I learned. I learned why Trump supporters on January 6th were yelling about Antifa, because they had seen Antifa at their rallies for the last 4 years. So they were very familiar with the tactics. And then you find that a guy like Philip has single-handedly in Portland, where you've got one of the strongest presences of this anarchist movement, and he's standing up. We've got video of him standing up there saying, no, you're not going to burn this building down. You're not getting past me. And there's, countless numbers of these guys, and they're violent, and they're coming at him, and he's just standing his ground. And that's how you discover, wow, here's this guy who grew up with very little. He doesn't have any connections. He's not well situated in society. He's not rich. He's got nothing, but he's got, he knows the difference between right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got principles, and he's got integrity, and he's got courage, and he is going to stand up, and nobody's going to push him around. And you're like, that's incredible. Then I go to another place in northern Minnesota, and I meet the James family. And, I didn't meet the mother, but this poor woman, her husband, and 3 of her sons are all going to go to prison. And her oldest son is black, and her 2 youngest sons are white. And so here's a family. We're told that Donald Trump, I don't care about race, but why am I mentioning this? Because we're told Donald Trump is the great racist, right?
Every day.
But here you have a family, that couldn't be more integrated or mixed or whatever you want to call it in their lives. They don't care. They don't care about black and white. They're a family, and they went to the Capitol together. And, Aaron James was a Navy corpsman, which is a medic. He put kids together on the battlefield after they were blown to pieces. He served his country. And when he saw Roseanne Boyland was dying, and there were people trying to save her, and they were being gassed by police at the same time, he took one of his brothers, and he said, take this. And he picked up a police shield he found on the ground and held it up to shield those people who were trying to save Roseanne Boyland's life. And for that, he's facing charges of assaulting a police officer. You should be ashamed of yourselves. The people in the Department of Justice who bring these charges, the judges that hear these cases and put people in prison for doing nothing but trying to save someone's life. They didn't threaten anyone. They didn't hurt anyone. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Man,
I can say this: if you have a pulse at all and you watch episode 1,
oh my goodness,
you're gonna have a lot of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of emotion, because it sort of tears off that mask and it humanizes these individuals. They're complex. You take somebody that, he's just in a sweatshirt and he's walking in the Capitol. No, this is a young man who liked to run in the rain barefooted. We're complex people, and we all are.
Ultra-marathon, David.
Yes.
He didn't just run from here to there. He ran 15-kilometer ultra-marathons, in barefoot. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that I was so struck by that when Matthew Perr and his friend Marcus told us about that was that, people have this sense that, well, if you committed suicide, you're kind of weak, right? There's a lot of people in prison for January 6th. They haven't killed themselves. Why is this guy killing himself? So there's a little bit of that going on. And as I learned about Matthew Perna, I found out that, wow, this guy was a Bernie Sanders fan before Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? This guy lived all over the world. And he didn't just go to Paris and London. He lived in South Korea. He was fluent in Thai. He had mastered Korean. A lot of people travel and they don't have the ability to learn those languages. Yep. He graduated cum laude from Penn State. He came home to nurse his parents. His mom had leukemia, and then later his father got Parkinson's. He was the guy keeping his father going. And he got into alternative health treatments when he was trying to save his mother. And so he started selling these water filtration machines online that you need, that people who want their water to be alkaline, that they use these machines. And Matthew believed that this was really important for cancer patients and other people who were seriously ill. But a lot of the people who called him couldn't afford to buy the machines. So Matt was constantly sourcing plastic containers, and he was filtering the water himself. And then he would deliver it to these people. He would drive in his car and go and deliver it to people he had never even met. You know, and so we have this idea in our head that everybody that went, well, we're told to have this idea. This is the narrative, is that everyone that went there that day, they're evil people. If you go back to 2016, they're the basket of deplorables, right? They're exactly what Hillary Clinton told us. They're the homophobes and the misogynists and the racists and the Islamophobes and, you know, all the other labels that they came up with. And they pretended at the time, this is an information warfare technique, that they didn't mean it. Oh, Hillary went too far, because it was an outcry. But actually what she was doing was pushing the needle exactly where they wanted it, right? Because all they have done ever since then is paint anyone who supported Donald Trump, or who doesn't submit, or who doesn't go along with the narrative. You're always painted as a racist and a homophobe and an Islamophobe. And so actually they set in place the narrative they wanted, right? When they get resistance, they hold the ground. They never go back, right? They don't undo it.
Right.
And then they wait it out. They wait for the resistance to fade, then they push it more, and they push it more, and they push it more. And they pushed it all the way, you know, to where we are today, right? Where they're putting American citizens behind bars in solitary confinement sometimes for misdemeanor charges that are nonviolent, that really historically would have just gotten a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, have you ever seen
They have
that
something
before?
in DC.
In all your years of
Forfeit
reporting?
They have in DC. Well, you know, America is very proud of its tradition of civil disobedience and the right to protest. And people were very quick to defend that during, you know, the riots and protests that followed the death of George Floyd. They don't like you to point out that, you know, 60 Secret Service members were wounded when these peaceful protesters attacked the barricades and Secret Service officers protecting the White House. You know, they're very protective of the right to protest, as long as you're not protesting anything that's got to do with conservatism or Trump or the Republic or the Constitution and so on, right? Take a knee and shut up when we tell you.
Well, like I say, your voice has never been more needed. And I gotta, you know, I love the conversations with you, but I also like want to zoom up to like 50,000 feet sometimes. And as frustrated as I get, I do feel like, man, God has prepared the right people at the right time to be in the right place with the ability to do the right thing. And you are certainly one of those people that is so needed right now. And not just over the last two decades of you telling the truth and doing the right thing and all over the world, but right now, you know, and every Thursday for the next several weeks, the truth is going to come out in a beautiful, well-crafted story that I would say is the 60 Minutes kind of caliber of journalism and storytelling that's graphically beautiful. It's well written. It tells a story. It changes your perspective on things because you see all sides of it in a way that people hadn't before. And I thank you for that. I thank you for having the skill to do it and the courage to do it now, because it's not easy.
No, it's not. And, you know, we have a very small team. Ben is really the backbone and the support, especially financially. But he just, you know, he just lets us do it, right? And so no one is telling us what to do or what to say. There's no one looking over our shoulders. And we really have been working around the clock and through the night. You know, there's only 3 more on this project, and 2 other producers, 3 and a writer backing us up, who's there, you know, to make sure that we don't mess anything up and don't get anything wrong, and ask the difficult questions and push us, right? And I wanted to have somebody like that. That's it. You know, that's all we have. And so I'm very grateful that I'm surrounded by people I can trust, people I respect, who are willing to give everything they've got to get these stories out.
So to watch the docuseries, you can go to truth_in_media on Twitter. Again, it's truth_in_media. You can see the documentary there. It came out today, September the 14th. So I just have one question for you as we close out. David may have another, but my last question I have for you, Lauren, is as you have been talking to all of these people, we've heard from people over the years. They feel really bad about what's happened to these people in jail, people that are now gone to trial for January 6th, but they're like, I don't know what to do. And one of the comments there at the end was, I'll be in here as long as the American people allow me to be in here. What can Americans do to make a difference?
Leave me here.
Leave me
That's
here.
what
There you
Jeremy
go.
Brown
Thank
did.
you.
Yes.
Leave me here. What can Americans do?
Well, I don't like to tell people what to do because I feel like you need to be motivated by your conscience and your principles, and you need to figure out what it is that you need to do. It's not that hard. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that you can pressure your leaders, either locally or nationally, to do something about this. If people in Congress think that no one is paying attention or no one is outraged enough to do anything about it, they're not going to do anything about it. We know that. If the judges hear nothing from Americans, they're just going to keep throwing people behind bars, some of whom, like Ryan Zink, didn't even go into the Capitol, made some bravado kind of posts, about it on social media, sort of acting as if he did, but didn't actually do it. Well, you would think that would come out in a court of law. No, he just got sentenced for something, that he didn't even do. There's no evidence of him doing it. None. Except, these posts where he's talking as if he did. And yet he goes to prison for that? Are you kidding me? So if you just stay silent, then the judges don't feel any pressure. The congressional leaders don't feel any pressure. The people crafting these false narratives, they don't feel any pressure. So I'm not going to tell people, you need to, call your congressman or you need to write a letter. I'm going to tell you that it's up to you what you figure out you're going to do, right? But you can't stand on the riverbank watching America drown and say, isn't it terrible? When is someone going to save her? Wow. Right? When is somebody going to do something? It's and there are organizations like Condemned USA, Trennis Evans, that are providing legal services to hundreds of January 6th defendants. Trennis has bankrupted himself doing that. He wasn't a rich man to start with. He wasn't the poorest. But everything that he and his family have, they've given to this. And he can barely he's scraping pennies together here and there. Why? Why? What is it you think your money is going to protect you from, right? Like when this country is going up in flames and you somehow think that if you hold on to everything you've got, that's going to be enough to protect you. It's not. Okay, so people like Trennis Evans should not have to struggle the way that they're struggling. Philip Anderson, he just started a Give, Send, Go account for his legal defense. Think about this. You've got tons of January 6th defendants who are represented by attorneys given to them by the state. Okay, public prosecutors. Now, a lot of public prosecutors are Democrats. And that doesn't mean that they can't do a proper defense, but it certainly means that a lot of them don't have any sympathy for the people they're representing. And how does that impact their case, right? You're being tried in Washington, D.C. by juries that are overwhelmingly Democrat, sometimes completely Democrat, by judges who are on the record saying unbelievable things in court on the record, and who have already ruled that this is, an insurrection, and which is not even vaguely true, and yet we expect that people going in front of those same judges are going to get a fair trial? Like, how does that work?
Right.
So what is the thing that bothers you? Are you a lawyer? You have to see by now that the Bar Association is coming after lawyers who dare to take these kind of cases. You can see with the Georgia indictments, it's clear as day. What people already knew is that if you're an attorney and you dare to take a case like this, God help you, we're coming for you, right? So, what does that tell you? It should tell you, if you're a corporation and you don't want to fly a pride flag, or come up with pride merchandise. What are your chances of surviving as a company? Because you've allowed it to happen. One way or another, one excuse or another, you've allowed it to happen on your watch. So now we have the governor of New Mexico declaring gun owners,
Right.
making them criminals, right? Taking away their part of their Second Amendment rights by saying we're just, in the name of a health emergency, we are suspending the Second Amendment for 30 days. Well, that happened because the Obama administration, the CDC during that time, they declared the gun violence an epidemic. They made it a public health issue. Well, we should have stood up then.
Yep.
We should have stood up then and said, no, this is not a disease. What are you doing? But now they have the right to use public health as an excuse to suspend the Second Amendment. And where are the protests? Where are they? Where's the NRA? The NRA is a joke. The NRA ate itself alive with the help of people who wanted to make sure they knew that if they tried to take out the NRA, it would be too obvious and people would stand up. But instead, they let the NRA eat itself from within, and they used, outside influence to help make that happen. And they took the heart and soul out of that organization, right? That's what happened. And so it's not up to me to say you need to do this or you need to do that. It's very obvious. There's always organizations that are working with people in this situation. If you have money, you want to help them, you can do that. If you're a lawyer or a retired lawyer and you want to help, you can be a consultant, you can advise cases. I mean, there's so many things that people can do. But what I would say is that it starts with speaking up. Stop being silent.
Yeah.
Stop being silent at the dinner table. Stop being silent in the office. Stop, hiding the fact. I went to an event in Washington, D.C. years ago, and people were coming up to me whispering in my ear, I love you on Fox. Oh,
wow.
Wow.
Great. But you don't dare say that aloud. So that's, if that changes, if people stop doing that, stop pandering to those who want to silence you. Do whatever it is that you can do in your life. If all that you do is take yourself off Facebook, because Facebook was instrumental in stealing that election in 2020 from the American people, and they're instrumental in censoring people. If that's all you do, then at least you did something. If you stopped shopping at Target, at least you did something. But find out what you're passionate about and figure it out.
That's
so good.
That's good. You should be like a coach or something. I feel like running through the wall. I'm thinking like 10 more things I can be doing right now. I'm like, yes.
Let's do it.
So thank you for that. We're gonna end tonight's episode a little bit later with your onstage speech in Las Vegas at the ReAwaken America event. And
so good.
Guys, buckle up, Flyover family, because we haven't even gotten started with what's going to come out of this woman today.
So, Laura, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, Laura.
Thank you both. I appreciate you so much as well. Two of my favorite people.
Our founding fathers evolved the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Woo,
Wow.
That is so good.
Powerful words from Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
You see that quote a lot in memes and things on Facebook, but to hear him lay that out and deliver that whole speech is really powerful. We wanted to work it into that piece because we need to be aware of what time it is right now, a time in human history, a time in your own personal history. There's times you can be like, I need to get to that at some time. You may want to see a game at Yankee Stadium or something. There's like things, I'd like to do this, in my life. And there's always time for that. when it comes to saving our country, there's not a future time for that. This is that time. We're at that time right now. You know, I had a conversation the other day with David Icke. It'd be a conspiracy conversation coming out this next Saturday, and we talked about, you know, with tyrants in charge and having their hands on the levers of power. If we don't stand up now, the kind of rule that comes next, you don't have the ability to stand up. You don't stand up and protest in China with the CCP. We have the ability to have better ideas, to have better conversations, to be more equipped to go home and make a difference. The ReAwaken America events help you do just that. The example I used with David Icke is when our daughter, you know, we're having conversations with her as she's getting into high school and college and moving on and stuff. We said, if you're ever alone or somebody comes to try to abduct you or grab you at the mall parking lot, or they put a gun to you and say, hey, get in this car, you know. And
don't do it.
Don't do it, because whatever they would, you'd be fearful of them doing in the mall parking lot will be far worse. You get in a car and go somewhere else. You have the most, it's not a good position to be in, but you have the most leverage early. You have less leverage later when their control goes up. That's the situation we're in right now as a country. And if we don't come together and take action on better ideas right now, there's not an option later when they have that kind of totalitarian role where your voice has been completely silenced. It's not a matter of, well, we can't have hate speech. They can't have your speech. All speech they hate is gone. The Second Amendment rights, already in New Mexico, under attack. Lord has talked about that in that last piece. We have to show up at these events. If not this one, then something else. I just don't know anywhere else where you have the best military minds, the best medical minds, the best in you know, media, church leaders, all that put together in one place and have a blast doing it. But don't get it twisted. You're going to be there to get better ideas and then go home and put them to action. That is the thing that's moving the needle in our country right now more than anything else. And we would love to have you come hang out with us in Miami. We'd love to have you come hang out with us in California at any of these future events.
So if you just text 918-851-0102, text the word flyover, that will get you in the queue for tickets so that you can come. You can name your own price. We would love to see you there. And it also puts you in a drawing for a backstage pass. So 918-851-0102. And as we promised, before we actually came to the segment right here, you get to actually see Laura on stage at the event in Las Vegas. So it gives you an idea. This is just one of the 70 plus speakers at the event, but she did such a great job. So here's Laura.
Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you know the name Lara Logan? Please stand to your feet and greet my good friend, and now yours, Lara Logan. There she is.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much. I wasn't supposed to wear this, but it's been a bit of a hectic day, so here I am. Okay, as I do, you know, when I'm coming here to speak to people, I thought a lot about what I wanted to say. And I thought, how am I going to hide the fact that I'm really pissed off right now? And then I thought, there's just no hiding it, right? I mean, is anybody else pissed off at what's happening in this country? Damn, seriously. And, you know, they've got us in this trap because they're so insane. Can I say batshit crazy? Okay, they're batshit crazy. And when you speak the truth, you sound crazy. And then they write articles about you saying how crazy you are. And so it's frustrating because we are in the midst of, as General Flynn has written about and told people, this is 5th generation warfare. So I want to know, you know, I got a couple of questions. I'm really frustrated that we don't get answers to any of these things. Because, yeah, Comey's gone, McCabe is gone, but who's going to be held accountable for a real seditious conspiracy? Right? Who's going to jail for that? Why don't we have mugshots of James Comey and John Brennan and all of these other people? And by the way, how much money do you have to be paid? How many times do you have to betray your country for money over and over and over again before some of these people will admit that you committed a crime, Joe Biden? Like, and I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm sorry if that offends people, that's too bad. Okay, I care about what the truth is. And if the Republicans were doing this, in fact, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, did I say that? The Republicans are doing this, okay? And what I see is, I see Texas, where I live, signing up for 2 ginormous carbon something or other bullshit plants that are supposed to suck CO2 out of the air and send it underground. And why, Greg Abbott? Why? Where is the Republican Party? Where are our leaders? Where are leaders anywhere in the country? They say, I get it, local action, national impact. But we can't do it on our own. You know why? Because whistleblower after whistleblower is standing up every single day. And you know what happens to them? They lose their job, they lose their reputation, some of them lose their families, they lose a lot of their friends. And who's lining up to help them? Nobody. Nobody. Border Patrol agents, FBI agents, Health and Human Services, you name it, journalists. I've got a young girl working with me right now. She gave up a whole career because she worked at CBS in San Diego local station, and she wouldn't report the lies about COVID that they wanted her to report. That was her dream job, and she gave it up. You don't know her name. Nobody knows her name. Nobody ever will really know her name, probably. So who's lining up to support these people? So I'm pretty angry right now because on my way over here, I found out that one of Trump's co-conspirators is in jail still in Fulton County. He hasn't been released. His Give, Send, Go account has raised about $13,000. And you know, on the left, if you put somebody up with a Give, Send, Go account, they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in seconds. 70% of the wealth in this country is now held by Democrats. Thanks to what? Them obliterating antitrust legislation? Just been obliterated. Let's face it, Microsoft, Facebook, none of these things work if you actually apply antitrust legislation. The only way they amass so much power and wealth is getting all of us to do what? Consolidate. Because it's more convenient. I can use iMessage for free. So everybody's got to have Apple. So we allow these people to amass power and wealth that is destroying us. Every time you go on Facebook, you're taking a knee. And there is no cloud, by the way. The cloud is bullshit, okay? It doesn't go into the atmosphere. Your data moves along physical lines. There's an actual physical infrastructure, and it's owned by people with names and addresses who can be held to account. Why are they stored? The dark web. It's not some nebulous thing out there. Someone is holding that data that exists on the dark web. A technology company is holding it. Ericsson stores child pornography in 140 countries around the world. 140 countries. What has happened to child pornography and child trafficking since technology has united the globe in this glorious one world that we're supposed to live in? What has happened to it since we opened up the borders? It's exploded. Every single person out there with some terrible dark fetish has found every other person who shares that fetish. So here's a reality check for you. Child trafficking, you know what it sometimes means? On a daily basis, it means children are being raped to service the corrupt, hedonistic, frankly, evil practices of some deranged individual. There are people today that sign up to do live rapes of children. They crowdsource across the dark web, and then you can all weigh in electronically, digitally. You can talk to each other and say how you want them to be tortured and hurt. And they do that every single day. In fact, there's probably one of those happening right now. And the technology companies are among the richest companies on earth, aren't they? Yeah, and who's making them rich? We are. I took myself off Instagram. I took myself off Twitter. I never really was on YouTube. But you know what I found out? I found out that YouTube is promoting people that are pushing pedophilia and bestiality, which, by the way, has a new name. Just like pedophiles are now minor attracted persons, MAPS. So bestiality is now zoo something or other. I don't even remember. But my 13-year-old son told me about it. Because it's in his TikTok feed, and it's in his YouTube feed. Why? What it means when you see a guy on YouTube with 22 million followers like Shane Dawson had, and he's got all these followers on Instagram as well, and he's all across social media, and he's talking about putting his cat on its back and spreading its legs and doing unspeakable things. And people are listening to him and they're laughing with him. And they're putting this, Shane Dawson's shows were targeted at children. At children. So what it means when he's so popular and so rich is that every single person that has any power and influence at YouTube is working to make sure that as many kids as possible hear about that. That's what it actually means. It means when they write the algorithms, a human being is entering data into those algorithms to make Shane Dawson famous and rich. It means that the marketing company, the advertising people, the front office, the management, the people in charge, it means every single part of that business is geared towards reaching as many people as possible with these ideas. And I'm listed on the Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm listed by them as a domestic terrorist, extremist, conspiracy theorist. For doing what? For standing up. I was asked to speak at a Moms for Liberty event in my tiny little town of 12,000 people in Texas. And for that, I am now in their sights. Because I say, if you can't say it on the radio, if you can't show it on television, and if you cannot print it in the local newspaper, it has no business being in schools. That is now an extremist view. If I ask what is happening to the tens of thousands of unaccompanied children crossing the southern border every single day, I am now an extremist and a conspiracy theorist. I tell you what you can do. You can shove that right where the sun don't shine. I am so done right now. I am so done because there are people in this country who have known for years that rich people with power are involved in pedophilia, and they let it happen. They let it happen. You know what Ericsson does in addition to storing child pornography? What can you do? What do you have the power to do when you control the physical infrastructure where data moves? And remember, today, data isn't just a loving message to your child. Data's money. The whole of Wall Street, digital transactions, Bitcoin, that's data moving along those lines. So they control the flow of information. They control the flow of money worldwide. How much power do these people have? I want to know, just be honest. Raise your hand if you've purchased Alexa or Google Nest. You literally, when you bring that technology into your home, you have submitted to 24-hour surveillance. And now they're building their 15-minute cities and their C40 cities where they want to outlaw all consumption of meat, all consumption of dairy, all private ownership of cars, limit every person to one flight every 3 years of 1,500 miles. All of this amounts to geographic isolation. And why do they want to defund the police? Why is it now a mainstream idea to defund the police? Because the police of the future is artificial intelligence. Because if we're all corralled into these 15-minute cities, they can geofence us and they can control us with technology. So you'll never find out what happened to those kids crossing the southern border. You'll never find out because when you Google it, it just won't come up. It just won't come up. You can sit together today and you can search the same thing online, and you and the person next to you get different results, depending on your digital profile. So if you're one of those people that says, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't care if they send me ads, I can just ignore that. Well, I'm sorry, but you have shit for brains at this point, okay? That's what you have. It's not about selling you something. It's not about selling you something. It's about knowing exactly when, where, and how to control you and to keep you isolated in this place. It's about geographic, physical, and ideological isolation. So you may think that things are changing in the country because of all the stuff that you're getting on your feed, on Twitter, or wherever it happens to be. But maybe it's not really changing. Maybe the curated news stories and commercials that are coming up for you, because you always see these commercials for, food that doesn't go bad, or whatever it happens to be, because you're preparing for what's to come. You may get this sense, a false sense of security, because people are all talking about it, right? Well, you have no idea what feed someone else is getting. So what I would say to you, they steal your vote with technology. People don't understand that the next election, the powers that be have designated to be the last one. It's not even going to be a real one if it even happens at all. I don't know. But why they say we don't need elections? Because we have predictive AI, and that will tell us who you're going to vote for. So we don't actually have to have the expense and trouble of holding an election. And the thing that pulls all of this together is climate. Because with the fake climate stuff, they can make it all happen. None of us are going to eat insects, let's face it. That's not going to happen. You know when you're going to eat insects? When there's nothing else to eat. That's when you're going to eat insects. When you're starving. And how are they going to make that happen? Everybody says, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask again. Are you really not going to wear a mask? Because I'm not. I know that. So what if they tell you that Ebola is here, or a virus that's just like Ebola, much worse than COVID, and you see people dying everywhere? Are you going to wear it then? Are you? So what about when the police show up at your door? Are you going to wear it then? Are you going to make your kids wear it to go to school? You know how many parents have said to me, my daughter had to do it to finish her nursing degree. My son had to do it because, he's in the Army. We're in the end game, okay? We're in the end game at this point. When you literally have people arguing for postpartum abortions, that's for murder. That is now a mainstream political conversation. When you've reached that point, you really are in some kind of end game. You can feel it, right? You can feel that we're heading towards a tipping point. So all I can tell you is, if you think you're safe because you live in a small town, you're not. You can absolutely guarantee. I watched under the Obama administration when organizations like Momentum, look up Momentum, and you will find a guide for exactly how to create your own movement. Momentum has a political arm. It's called Indivisible. You want to know how your mostly conservative, 90% conservative neighborhood ends up with a city council that's 90% progressive? Because of Indivisible. Because they come into your community and they buy people, they put rhinos in office, and then you end up with a whole bunch of policies that don't represent anybody. My town in Texas, the school board just voted to put these books back in our middle school and our high school. And now, oh no, it's okay, don't worry, it's fine, because you have to sign a consent form as a parent. Oh, that's really gonna work out, isn't it? Why do they need to be in the schools at all? Nobody's talking about banning books. Nobody's talking about violating the First Amendment. Get them out of the schools. My kids, I have a right to protect their innocence. Every single one of us has that right. And they're taking it from us. So, you guys are already awake. That's why you're here, let's face it. Right? There's nobody here that's not awake, unless you're a rhino and you came here to collect information, in which case you can go yourself. I'm done. I'm done. I'm so tired of it. I am so tired of it. I'm tired of being told, you know, that hardworking Americans are doing everything they can to raise their kids. Now, you know what they did? They made political activism a full-time job. You can be the biggest loser on earth. You can do drugs all night. You can achieve nothing in your life, but you'll have a job for life these days because you'll be paid to go out on the streets and stir up shit, or to go to some Trump rally and create violence so that some academic at Penn State can do an academic study and conclude that Trump supporters are more violent than anybody else because they paid people to come in your midst and start fights. You know, and that brings me to January 6th. I have been working on a series. Some people might be wondering what happened to Lara Logan. Well, I'm doing something that takes a lot of hard work. And it takes time, and it takes discipline, and it takes money. And conservatives, Republicans, I don't know, they don't want to part with any of their money, the very wealthy ones. They don't. There's very few of them that want to part with their money. They want to hunker down and hope like hell that, you know, the storm just goes right by them. They don't want to take any risks. And you know what? Partly because the cost of standing up is too high for too many people. It's too high because you give up everything. And 10 years later, you're still fighting, and you're still fighting upstream. So we need people out there to stand up and create organizations that support whistleblowers, that provide employment, that provide legal advice, you know, and that provide small grants to help them get through so that they don't go under. Do you know how many January 6 families are destitute and homeless? Destitute and homeless. And the little money, tiny amounts of money they are able to raise, the government is going after it in court and taking it from them. And it took how long for anyone from the Republican Party to be willing to even talk about that in public? It's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. And the only thing, there's only three things that stand between us and that. One, obviously, and the most important of all, is God. Number two is the truth. And number three is the fact that they are absolutely shit scared of everybody acting together. That's what they're afraid of. That's why you have to be isolated. Every single strategy they have is geared towards isolating us from each other, divide us. Left and right, I'm sorry, it's BS. It's absolute BS. That doesn't mean that we all agree on everything. But they want us so busy focused on fighting each other that we don't realize that the real war is against humanity as a whole. And I come back, what is the thing that puts all of it in place? Climate is the thing, it's how they terrify us into submission. It's how they take away the land. It's how they destroy agriculture. They're literally taking people's farms in the Netherlands right now. They're in Germany, they're killing off the cattle. We have mayors, Austin, Houston, New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Portland. These cities have signed up to be C40 cities, where no one eats any meat, by the way. The same people that want to tell you that you have to be organic are now telling you that the planet is killing you. Carbon dioxide is one of the key components of life on Earth, all life on Earth. But now it's a poison, and we're letting it happen. Right now, our leaders are signing up to agreements like the Paris Climate Accord that nobody reads, and the language is inscrutable, nobody can figure it out. You go on the C40's website, nobody can figure it out. It's very simple. If you see these words, equity, sustainability, diversity, inclusion, it's bullshit. So what I really, what I want to say to you is, it's not okay that people are in prison today without trial. Okay, that violates every fundamental tenet of the Constitution and our legal rights, the legal rights that belong to every citizen. There is no border. Okay, you should just know that. There is no southern border, there is increasingly no northern border. Okay, and when you see things, like you see that Chinese people are coming across the border in the hundreds and thousands, I want you to think about the fact that they have to pay tens of thousands of dollars to make that journey. There is not a single Chinese citizen desperate to make a better life for themselves that has that kind of money. When they have the money to do that, they buy their way in. Because there's plenty of government programs that allow them to buy their way in. So their passage can only be paid for by the Chinese Communist Party. There's nobody else that can pay for that. When you see articles telling you that the Mexican cartels, the myth of the cartels, look for this propaganda out there right now. The myth of the power of the cartels. They are literally rationalizing and lying to you about the most violent and powerful criminal organizations on earth. Because they opened up the southern border, they made them more powerful and richer than they've ever been. Okay? And these are people who have literally figured out on a daily basis how to inflict the most unspeakable cruelty on everyone around them who doesn't comply. They literally live with a reign of terror. I've actually seen them, they figured out if they pump you full of heroin and they figured out how to cut off your limbs until there's just a torso left. And by the way, those torsos are now used for another form of sex trafficking, where you die by asphyxiation. And I don't have to give, you can use your imagination for how that happens. That's literally what they're doing, cutting off people's limbs and using them for that. There's an entire genre of pornography now called hurtcore on the dark web, which is sadistic pornography. And Moms for America recently sent an email out that they got notified. They passed a law in Virginia that parents have to be notified if explicit sexual content is going to be taught in the schools. So one mom sent in a letter that she got from the school, advising her that 5 and 6-year-olds were going to have a class which included things like bestiality and sadistic sexual gratification. So, and Moms for America, just like, all the other organizations and parents that have stood up, are being targeted by people like the Southern Poverty Law Center and demonized as extremists. Demonized as extremists, because we don't want that stuff taught to our kids. And I say to you again, all of this is happening. The glue that makes all of this move around the world is the technology. That's how they're reaching people. And those people who control that technology are literally getting away with murder. I want to thank you for listening to me. I don't want to run into Don Jr.'s time. I'm going to be in big trouble if I do that. Okay, so thank you very, very much, everybody. Join me in being pissed off.
Our founding fathers evolved the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I love these because it's a big, important part of our lives is our money and what we're doing. And, we don't know a lot in life, but we do know a guy. We've known him for 25 years.
25 years.
25 years. He's an incredible friend. His dad was a mentor of ours, and he happens to have 2 PhDs. And this is a time where you need some people pretty smart behind the wheel. Dr. Kirk Elliott.
Man, thanks for nothing. You just aged all of us.
25
all
years.
of us.
Well, I said we met in kindergarten. We met in
Quarter
kindergarten.
of a century.
We met when we were 2.
I wish, but you know what? As you go through life, those long-term relationships do become increasingly, more valuable because track records say a lot. And, in this world, a lot of, COVID kind of sifted through some people. I had some pastors, I thought, man, they're all in, and they're like, totalitarian, and they were, having Fauci in to speak. And you're like,
Yep.
I didn't see that come. It's like, when you've gone this long with someone and you've seen how they've handled, their marriage, their life, the track record that they create, the fruit around them, it does mean a lot in today's world. This relationship is one of the most valuable that we have, not just because of your wisdom and advice, but just because of your track record and your sustained consistency as a person.
Relationship means a ton to me too. It's like, there's not too many times in life that you can have people that you totally trust and love being with and are just like family, right? And that's what you guys are to my family. And it's just an awesome thing that we get to do life together and help people.
Yes.
It's great.
Yep.
That is huge. Getting them out of the way of some crazy stuff going on in our world today. And you got some things you want to talk about today that I think is important for the Flyover family to hear.
Well, yeah, it's like things aren't as they seem, right? I think the whole world is being propped together with funny money right now. That's not funny, right? It's like, it's just fake. It's weird stimulus. And whenever we see inflation, just know one thing. Rising prices are just a symptom of inflation. True inflation is just an increase in the money supply because it takes more of that devalued currency to buy goods and services, right? So no better way to explain that than what I think is going to be the biggest crash of all time in the real estate market. I think that's coming, right? Because if you look at this first chart that I want to go over, this isn't a new thing. It's not like, ooh, the stuff that we're seeing just started happening. No, this started happening in the late 90s, right? So you go back, you started to get kind of the Fed getting a little bit squirrely on how they were printing money, a little bit loosey-goosey, right? And it's like printing way too much of it. So when you had the dot-com bubble that happened in, the first part of the century, 2000, what did the Fed do to try to stimulate the economy? Because that was a doozy, right? So you had tech stocks that came down 80% as a whole. 80% in 2.5 years. That's a big correction, right? So what did they do? They tried to stimulate buying. They tried to stimulate the economy, get people buying again to grow the economy after that big, huge collapse. And interest rates went from 6.5% to 1%.
Wow.
So that was their response. That's one of the ways that they do things is interest rate policy. If you lower interest rates, it's going to entice people to spend money, right? But so they did the double whammy, right? They also printed a ton of money. So you print money and they will have money for people to spend, right? So a lot of money to lease out, to loan out, to do this and that with, right? So they were doing both. They were printing money, causing inflation, lowering interest rates, it causes more inflation, right? So now we've got this inflationary world that we're living in. So then you fast forward to 2007, 2008, the Fed lowered interest rates to 0.16%, right? So even down from 1. So now rates are almost at 0. You can't go any lower than that. So they're trying to really stimulate the economy, but they're doing even more of what they were doing before. They're printing money, a ton of it, like a lot, right? So the Fed has this balance sheet, right? So what does the Fed's balance sheet look like? Well, they print money out of thin air and they buy something with it. That's going to show up on your balance sheet. What do they buy? U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, right? So the balance sheet doubled from 2010 till now to $9 trillion. 2.6 trillion of that, so 25% of all the money printed went into the housing market. That's what that tells us. Mortgage-backed securities, 25% of all stimulus money went into the housing market. No wonder houses are priced where they are today, right? So this is why I think the housing market is going to crash, and it's going to crash hard, because the only reason why it is where it is because of funny money, because of stimulus money keeping the housing market propped up, right? So when you look
like
at
The
that
Big Short.
I almost every day I think of The Big Short. I've watched
Reminds
it
me of
3
that
times
movie.
now, just in the last couple of weeks, and there's so many quotes in there that are ominous for our moment right now.
Yeah. So you look at what happened with all the stimulus money. The blue line on that chart is the Case-Shiller U.S. National Home Price Index. So the home prices started at about 60, right before 1990, and now they're at like 310. So
Jeez.
6, 12, 18, 24, 300. That's basically a 5-fold increase in housing prices since 1990. That's massive.
It's massive.
Right? That's absolutely massive. And it's all because of stimulus money going into the system and buying mortgage-backed securities with it. So let's look at this next chart. What hasn't kept up with housing prices? Wages. Wages have not kept up, which is why people are going to the grocery store. They're buying gas. They're trying to buy houses. It's like, man, things aren't just, we're not keeping up.
Yeah.
Our money doesn't go as far as it used to. So look at this chart. The blue line at the bottom is median household income over that time frame.
Okay.
It's kind of static. I mean, it's kind of flat, right? What's not flat? The median rent price.
Yep.
Look at that widening gap. So why are rental prices going up so much? Well, because people can't afford to buy houses. When you can't afford to buy houses, not everybody can live under a bridge, so they go to rent, which is why the rent prices are up. This is like the worst of all possible combination for American families. So something's got to give, right?
Yep.
This is where I think the housing prices are going to come crashing down to earth. And sure enough, chart that you don't have, but what I saw last week, the number of new mortgage applications telling us people are actually applying for mortgages to buy a house is now at the lowest point that it's been, even worse than 2008. That big massive real estate collapse. It's now worse, right? So I thought the Bidenomics was working. I thought that they had tackled inflation. I thought that they were doing a good job. I thought they were creating jobs. I thought that wages were going up. At least that's what the White House press secretary tells us. But none of it's real. It's all just fabrications and
She also looks right in the camera and says that Joe Biden has done more to secure the border than any president in U.S. history.
I mean, everybody knows
and
that's
it doesn't
bogus.
even blink. It just goes on. It's like, wow.
Crazy.
Well, he has secured the border. Americans can't get out anymore. Right?
Yeah. There's passageways in Arizona they've welded open. They've gone in and welded them open.
I mean, but you speak against that kind of stuff. That's how Nigel Farage got his bank account shut down, like we talked about earlier in the week, is because of, in the 40-page dossier from his bank said because of your views on immigration. One of the reasons why you got cut off was because of that. So you've got this battle that's waging, and the point of all this is not the social battle that we're seeing and the political battle. The point is our economy is not strong, and I think the housing market is going to be the next big thing that fails, and that's going to impact everything. I think it's going to make 2009, 2008, 2007, that whole time frame look like kindergarten compared to what's coming, because the numbers are so much worse, right? So you've got all this fake funny money that's kept the real estate market propped up, and it was fake. That what would make it real is if it were being propped up because of people actually spending money on their own, from wages going up, from interest rates coming down, the affordability of homes being there, right? But that's not there. See, when you see the inflation numbers that we're seeing, the rising house prices that we're seeing, if like on those charts, if that blue line would match up with the red line, nobody would even know there was a problem because your wages are keeping up with the higher prices.
Right.
It's like it doesn't matter. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing this widening gap. When you see widening gap, what does that mean? You're going to start to hear buzzwords of social inequality. You're going to hear buzzwords of, boy, we got to attack the rich, take care of the poor, right? You've got wage discrepancies. You've got class warfare. That's social unrest always follows economic chaos. That's what I think this housing market's going to bring. So what else goes up with inflation? It's not just housing prices. It's what we shout about from the rooftops every single week. Gold and silver go through the roof with that. So what we get to do is
protection.
What Elon Musk said, probably 4 or 5 months ago, he was asked, and Elon's a smart guy, right? He's like brilliant, actually. So it's like, what do you do in times of inflation? He said, well, I invest in things because things always go up with inflation. So gold and silver is a thing. We should do what he says. We should do what central banks around the world are doing. Not what they're saying. They're saying that their system is the greatest and it's going to fix everything that's broken. No, what they're doing, not what they're saying, is they're buying gold by the hundreds or thousands of tons at a time.
Wow.
Right there. They've amassed so much gold in the BRICS nations, so much gold in other countries. Why? If it were such a bad investment, why would they be buying it by the hundreds or thousands of tons? Maybe because it's not a bad investment, right? Maybe because it's the safe haven. If their central bank digital currency thing doesn't fly because there's so much opposition, or maybe they just want to be the world's reserve currency, they're going to back up their currency with gold. What's the bottom line? Gold, tangible assets, precious metals, right? So we're not going to ever buy gold by the hundreds or thousands of tons, but we can buy gold and silver by 1 ounce at a time.
Amen.
And do the exact same thing they're doing, just at a different scale, whatever financial level you're at. The key is just get started. Just keep allocating into that strength. It's one of the keys to wealth, is to keep adding and be consistent with it. And then over time, you're going to realize, man, my compounding of ounces that I've had over the years, had no idea I had all these ounces under my belt. This is amazing, right? So the key is to navigate through this crisis. I would A, get out of debt. B, I would make sure that you're not over leveraged on real estate, because you're not going to be able to sell it at a profit when it comes crashing down, right? And I would use those proceeds and I would allocate into something physical, like tangible assets like gold and silver, to take advantage of the trend. This isn't a permanent reallocation. It's a reallocation for right now, to take advantage of these trends. When silver peaks out, we'll sell it. When gold peaks out, we'll sell it, just like you would any other asset. But our goal right now is to transition through this rough economy. It's a dark spot, in our economic history and present and future, but we can thrive during it. You can be in the right place at the right time. We can grow, we can multiply, and we can have an abundant lifestyle. See, that's God's way, is to live an abundant lifestyle in everything. Relationships, your finances, you operate with wisdom, get out of debt, be at financial peace, right? These are all God's math. These are God's ideas. And when we allocate accordingly, we can live a world of abundance. We don't have to live with a poverty mindset of being shackled with debt, which was never God's intent, right? But as Americans, we've kind of, maybe no fault of our own, maybe we got laid off because Biden's economy stinks so bad, right? And we had to actually go into temporary debt just to survive. But kind of living a lifestyle of debt, the Bible tells us the borrower is a slave to the lender. Ultimately, you got to pay the piper, right? So during times like this, we all need to reassess what's important and what's not. We need to trim the fat from our budgets and just be lean and mean, get only what's necessary, but allocate into that strength so you can grow and thrive. That would be my recommendation for everybody in today's world that we're living in.
Man.
I love it. So go to flyovergold.com. It's a place that you can research, you can find out more information, but when you scroll down to the bottom, there's a place you can fill out your information. When you do that, someone from Dr. Kirk's team will get a hold of you to set up a free consultation. It doesn't cost you any money whatsoever to find out what are your options, where are you financially, and how can Dr. Kirk's team help you. Again, you can go to flyovergold.com or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today. You won't regret it. Dr. Kirk, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
Times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how in 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for your free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
For more great content, go to flyoverconservatives.com.